Most men live their entire lives in a fog of confusion. They chase approval, affection, and happiness through women, only to end up broken, bitter, or stuck in situations they can't escape. But almost 200 years ago, the German philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer cut through the illusions of romance and exposed a harsh truth. He argued that what we call love isn't some divine destiny or a union of souls. It's a biological trick, an illusion carefully designed, not for your joy, but for one single purpose: the survival of the species. And once you start seeing it this way, you can't look at relationships, attraction, or even your own desires in the same light ever again. So stay with me, because by the end of this, you'll understand why so many men destroy themselves in the pursuit of love, and how the man who grasps Schopenhauer's insight can escape the trap that consumes almost everyone else. Schopenhauer didn't write poems about romance, he tore it down to its core. Love, he argued, isn't spiritual, and it isn't transcendent. It's an instinctive force that takes over your emotions and convinces you that one specific person is the one. But beneath the surface, what's really happening is unconscious calculation. Your mind is running silent equations: fertility, compatibility, strength, security. You think you're making a choice, but in reality, biology is making it for you. That's why the obsession feels so overwhelming. Not because you've discovered a soulmate, but because your body and brain are conspiring to carry out nature's command: reproduction. And here's the cruel twist. The moment biology's mission is accomplished, the obsession begins to fade. That's why so many relationships collapse after the initial fire burns out. The chemicals settle, and fantasy gives way to reality. Think about how many men have sacrificed their health, their wealth, even their very lives for a woman, only to be left behind without a second thought. How many marriages crumble once passion fades into routine? This isn't coincidence. It isn't cruelty. It's design. Schopenhauer pointed out that women, just like men, are driven by instinct, but their instincts follow a different set of priorities: security, protection, and status. Not fairness, not blind loyalty, not even logic. That's why women are often drawn not to the most generous man, but to the strongest and most capable one. Nice guys, as we call them today, are frequently overlooked, not because kindness is undesirable, but because kindness without strength is read as weakness. Schopenhauer put it with brutal clarity. If a man wants to be loved, he can't simply be good. He must also be clever, capable, and commanding. Why does passion so often fade after commitment? Why does desire seem to vanish the moment stability is secured? Schopenhauer called this the tragedy of possession. The thrill isn't in having, it's in attaining. The chase feels electric because nature designed it that way. But once the conquest is complete, biology shifts its focus, and the fire begins to cool. This is why men who cling too tightly, who build their entire world around one woman, almost always lose her respect, and eventually her presence. Love is most intoxicating when it carries uncertainty. Too much security doesn't strengthen attraction, it suffocates it. Here's where Schopenhauer's insight turns even darker. The rules of attraction aren't fair, they don't answer to reason, and they certainly don't favor you. Society tells men to value equality and emotional vulnerability, but biology doesn't care about ideals. From the moment a woman reaches maturity, her value in the sexual marketplace is high. A man, on the other hand, has to earn his value through ambition, resilience, strength, and social standing. This imbalance gives women natural leverage, not out of malice, but because nature designed them to be the selectors. Men compete, women choose. That's the law of biology. Ignore it, and you lose. But Schopenhauer noticed something even more subtle. Women don't compete the same way men do. They don't win through brute force, they win through influence. While men clash openly with fists, arguments, or wealth, women rely on the invisible weapons of perception and emotion. They shift social dynamics with precision. They read micro-expressions, changes in tone, and the smallest shifts in behavior. A man might think he's just having a casual conversation, But in reality, he's being tested. Every canceled plan, every emotional reaction, every compromise is quietly measured. Do you crack under pressure? Do you lose your frame? Do you need her more than she needs you? Most men fail these tests without ever realizing they were being tested in the first place. Schopenhauer called this dynamic the tyranny of the weak, a paradox where apparent vulnerability becomes the most powerful weapon of all. Tears deflect accountability. Affection is withheld to enforce compliance. Jealousy is stirred to test your confidence. And men, mistaking these strategies for random behavior, surrender to them without even realizing it. But here's the path to real strength. Understanding that none of this is personal. It isn't rooted in cruelty or malice. It's about survival. This is how evolution shaped both men and women to secure the future of the species. So what does this mean for you? It means the real enemy isn't women, it's illusion. The illusion that love is unconditional. The illusion that devotion guarantees loyalty. The illusion that someone else can hand you happiness. Schopenhauer's real lesson was never about hatred. It was about clarity. The man who sees the truth stops blaming others for his pain. Instead, he takes back control. At this point, you might think Schopenhauer was nothing but cynical. But hidden within his bleak observations is a liberating truth. Freedom begins when you stop expecting life to match your fantasies. The men who truly thrive aren't the ones chasing validation. They're the ones who build themselves so completely that validation no longer matters. History's greatest figures, the inventors, the warriors, the philosophers, were rarely trapped in the endless pursuit of approval. They had a purpose so powerful that everything else became secondary. So how does a man today rise above the trap? Schopenhauer's writings point to three foundations. 1. Economic independence. Money itself doesn't guarantee happiness, but the freedom it provides makes you untouchable. A man who controls his livelihood cannot be easily controlled or manipulated. 2. Philosophical depth. Most people drift through life on autopilot, repeating whatever society feeds them. The strong man trains his mind. He studies, questions, and reflects. He learns to separate truth from illusion. 3. Physical mastery. The body isn't just a tool for survival, it's the vessel of willpower. A weak body produces a weak spirit. Strength, discipline, and health form the foundation of real self-respect. Perhaps Schopenhauer's most misunderstood statement was this: the safest way of not being very miserable is not to expect to be very happy. At first it sounds like pure despair, but in practice it's a kind of armor. When you stop demanding that life hand you bliss, you discover something far stronger: resilience. You stop chasing illusions and start shaping reality. And here's the irony. When a man no longer begs for love or fairness, they often come to him anyway. Why? Because he has become rare. He has become the prize. The battle between men and women isn't personal. It's an ancient dance written into our biology. The man who refuses to see it will suffer. The man who accepts it can adapt, grow, and rise above it. Schopenhauer warned that most of us give up who we really are just to blend in with others. The challenge is simple but terrifying. Will you keep chasing illusions, or will you step into your true power? Because once you see the truth, not the comforting story, not the fantasy, but the raw truth, that's the moment your real life begins.